Today we're going to discuss the last lesson, which is art and society. So we're going to discuss how art would be reflective of the society and how society is reflected by art. Just like our example here, this Lavanderas by Fernando Amorsolo, who is our national artist for visual arts. This particular work shows us the lifestyle of women during this time. This was 1945. So we see here in the artwork women washing clothes in the river, which at this time may no longer be existing. I don't know if in your place there are still women who would be bathing in the river or washing their clothes in the river, but this one reflects the society during that particular period of time, how women would um, wash their clothes, would take a bath, where would they take a bath? So this one is reflective of the society during this particular period of time. So that is what we're going to discuss here in art and society. To understand how art impacts the society, we are going to discuss several terms that be related to how we are affected or how our society is reflected by arts and how arts would also affect the society. Now we have the first term here, we have appropriation. Now to understand appropriation, we also need to understand the term ownership. What is meant by ownership? So when we say ownership, that is referring to an individual who has the total control or total right of a particular thing. So, for example, this background here is a painting, and I I bought that painting, therefore I have ownership of that painting because I bought it. So that is ownership. Now, in relation to appropriation, we also have copyright. So, what is copyright? The person who created the work exclusive rights to has the exclusive right to reproduce, to display publicly, or to make and distribute copies and to prepare derivative works based on the original artwork. So, if you have the copyright of that particular artwork, then you can reproduce it because you have the copyright. You can also display it publicly. You can distribute copies of it, and you can do other derivative works based on the original artwork, meaning you can modify it because it's you have the copyright to that particular artwork. For example, we have yung song or yung movie. It you own the song, then you can reproduce it. You can display it, you can do anything on it because it is your you have the copyright to that particular artwork. So hindi pwede yung kaya nga yung mga CDs that are sold in the market, yung mga burned CDs, yung anong tawag na nun, they are sold by yung mga vendors dyan sa gilid-gilid. Those are considered plagiarized because these people who reproduced and sold these songs in CDs do not have the copyright of the song. So that is that's why it's illegal. It's not supposed to be patronized. So that's copyright. Next we have still on appropriation, so ownership in copyright. So purchase of a created work will merely result in the transfer of ownership, but the copyright will still remain with the creator. So if, for example, I painted and then I sold my painting, the person who bought my painting will have will have the ownership of that painting. Okay, but not the copyright, just the ownership. However, for a buyer who paid for the work, the buyer usually owns the copyright. So, for example, I commissioned someone to do a portrait of me on a canvas. using oil as medium, oil paint as medium. So I commissioned the person. I paid for his labor. Then the copyright would be mine. Just like when you're going to ask an engineer to design a building for you and create that building for you, he does not have the copyright of that building. um you have the copyright, you have the ownership, total ownership of that building. You can sell that building if you want because that's yours. You just paid the architect or the engineer to design the building, but originally the idea is yours. This is the idea of copyright. The idea is yours, it comes from you, and therefore you have the copyright to it. However, when we say copyright class, you cannot just claim I have copyright of it. You have to apply for it. That has to undergo process before you can say you have the copyright of your artwork. So let's say it's a song. You composed a song. Before you can say you have the copyright to that song, you have to apply for copyright. It has to undergo legal processes before you can have the copyright of that song. The moment you have copyrighted it, you have all the rights to it, you can do anything to it. However, if you have a song, you publish it but never copyright it, and somebody else would claim it to be his and have it copyrighted, then that person will have the copyright of that song since you did not apply for a copyright for that song. So if you're going to create an artwork, for example, and you want it copyrighted, you have to go through the process and then get that certificate that you have the copyright of that particular artwork. And you can sue actually anyone who would be modifying it or copying or distributing it without your permission. So that is copyright. Now take note, if you paid for the work, like you commission someone to do it for you, then you can have the copyright of that particular artwork since it was your idea. That person only put it into tangible object. Ang ginawa lang naman niya, for example, you created the idea, certain painting, you have the idea, you just commission the person kasi hindi ka marunong mag-paint, so you just commission the person to do it for you. But the idea is yours. So that is why you can have the copyright of it since it is your idea. It's not his idea, it's your idea. He's just putting your idea into action. So yun yung difference ng ownership. So if I'm the artist, the idea is mine. I just sold it. I just sold my painting to someone else. The copyright can still be mine, but the ownership is no longer mine because I sold it already to someone else. So we have here appropriation. This refers to borrowing images that are recognizable from different sources and using these borrowed images to make a new art form. So for example, here in our PowerPoint presentation, you have their Mona Lisa. Originally, that's Mona Lisa by Da Vinci. So what happened to Mona Lisa now? If you look at the hair, it's moving. Okay, so the artist of this digital art with based this one from the original Mona Lisa. But what did he do? He modified by making it an anime or an animated picture. He animated the hair of Mona Lisa. So that is what we call appropriation. We borrow certain image and we put some modifications on it, but we make sure that the original or the owner, the original painter maybe, or the original artist would be recognized through that artwork. So here we can recognize that this is Mona Lisa by Da Vinci. The only thing that is added is that it has become animated. But still, we can recognize that that is Mona Lisa from Da Vinci or by Da Vinci. So appropriation means is a means of experimentation by changing the context around borrowed images and objects. Just like this one, the context of the borrowed image has been changed. Artist establishes original artwork in new context. Here, original artwork, Mona Lisa. It is presented in new context. It's now animated. So an artwork can be appropriated in two ways. Number one is appropriate artistic content, elements, motifs, style, and genre. So you can appropriate artistic content. You can also appropriate elements. So when we say appropriate, we just have to modify it. We have to make sure that the original artist is recognized or the original work is recognized. We can also appropriate motifs, style, and genres. We will be giving I will be giving you examples on this one later. And also another one is to adopt items that they consider to be artwork. So we adopt items and then a certain item is considered as an artwork and we adopt it and place it in our own artwork. That is also considered appropriation. Like if you remember Duchamp's The Fountain, yung urinal na yon, he considered it as an art. So he named it The Fountain. Now, if you're going to get that urinal and place it into your artwork as accessory, then that could also be appropriation because the urinal is not yours. You just borrowed it and accessorize your own artwork with it. Then you are appropriating Duchamp's The Fountain. Appropriation is different from copying or forgery. So appropriation is not copying. It's not also forgery. Appropriation allows the viewer to recognize the origin of the borrowed images and objects as well as the original context. So if you are going to appropriate, you make sure that people who will be looking at your artwork will recognize the original artist and the original artwork. And thus, that will be considered appropriation. So forgery or copying tries to deceive the viewers into thinking that they are looking at an original work of art. So that's the difference between forgery or copying and appropriation. Because in forgery or copying, you claim the artwork as your own. You don't give a chance to people for people to know the original art and the original artist. Like you are going to present that particular work as your own. You did not borrow anyone else's idea. So that is forgery or copying. So we have different types of appropriation. So this is there is an appropriation that occurs across the boundaries of culture. So you appropriate a certain culture by using their artworks or piece of art. So a person with a certain culture takes objects created by a person or a group of persons of another culture and uses these objects as his or her own. For example, attire or costume. You're going to use it as if it is your own costume. You do not observe the use of that piece of maybe dress or costume according to how it is used by the people who own the costume. So it's as if it's your own costume now that you will use it in any other purpose apart from the original purpose of that costume. So that is one appropriation, which is also offensive to the owner of the artwork. So you have example here. She says, I am not a costume. So thanks for thinking our culture is beautiful, but please don't sexualize and tokenize us on Halloween. So a costume or certain uh, dress used by certain tribe for a certain meaning. They have their cultural meaning attached to that particular costume. And then you're going to use it on Halloween, for example, to make you look sexy, make you look different. That's not anymore recognizing the original meaning of the costume. So next, so we have here types of cultural appropriation. We have object appropriation. This one refers to appropriation of concrete and noticeable works of art. So you're going to use the object, maybe use it as an accessory to your artwork, or um, use it and add your own artwork as accessory to it. It could be that way. So you use that is object appropriation. You get the object, put it in your artwork as an accessory, but that particular object is an artwork of someone else. Or get that object and use your own artwork to accessorize that object. So modifying now the original artwork. So that is object appropriation. Next is object appropriation happens when a tangible work previously owned by people from one culture was taken and adopted by a person or a group of persons from another culture. Okay, so you take the object, let's say for example, um, yung mga basket is done by a certain artisan, and then you're going to use that basket to accessorize. For example, you want it pasted on your painting to accessorize your own painting, then that is object appropriation. Next, we have content appropriation. Content appropriation is adoption of works of art that are short stories, poetry, and musical compositions. This happens when an intangible work previously expressed by people from one culture was adopted by another culture or another person or group of people from another culture. So, for example, let's just say we have our story Noli Me Tangere, for example, that's Filipino, and then someone else from or a producer from Hollywood would like to produce our Noli Me Tangere into a movie. Okay, so he will use our Noli Me Tangere into a movie. Okay, and of course he would be modifying some for the purpose of um, filmmaking. He would be modifying some of the parts of the story. There will be modification, so that would be content appropriation. Or, for example, they would like to come up with a movie using our Florante at Laura. So along the process, there will be some modifications for beautification of the film. Then we call that one content appropriation. Next, we have this one, style appropriation. So artists do not replicate works created by a person or group. However, they use the elements of those works in creating another works. For example, here you see the textile of the Cordillera. Benguet yata to. So, Benguet textile. Yan. Benguet textile or Cordilleran textile was used for or to create their clothing before. They would use it to create G-string and yung tapis of the women. But you look at here, the person here uses the textile of the Cordillera, but made use of it using another fashion style. So fashion design, it has become now a hoodie. The other one is a hoodie. The other one is an overall, which is not an original design where Cordilleran textile was used. So that's what we call style appropriation. You don't replicate the textile, you just use it to create work, another work of art. Next, we have also motif appropriation. Happens when an artist is inspired by the art from a different culture but produce the artworks using do not produce the artworks using exactly the same style. So for example, textile. So if you look closely to the textile here, it does not actually follow the exact pattern of the uh Benguet design. It's not using the motif of Benguet. But if you look at it at a glance, you may say that it's really a Cordilleran textile, but if you look closely, the motifs are different from the ones that are on Benguet textile. So that is what we call motif appropriation. Next, you have subject appropriation. This one occurs when a subject matter from another culture is appropriated. For example, this one, Pocahontas. Pocahontas in the book and Pocahontas in the movie is never the same as the Pocahontas in the original story. So we call that one subject appropriation. You modify certain characteristics or traits of a certain subject, maybe for the sake of art, but you make sure that the original is recognized as well. Now let us discuss the art from the Cordillera. So some of the arts of the Cordilleras were also appropriated. For example, textiles, they are appropriate, they have been appropriated, especially at this present time since the textile is no longer used as how it was used originally. Right now, we have like bags made of Cordilleran textiles. We have also like gowns made of Cordilleran textiles and so on. So some of the arts of the Cordilleras are also appropriated. Now, Cordilleras, why specifically Cordilleras, arts from the Cordilleras? Since we are in Baguio City and Baguio City is part of the Cordillera, that is why the center or the focus of the sample arts that we will have would be in the Cordilleras. So the Cordilleras is composed of Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Ifugao, and Benguet. In the Cordilleras, they have wood carving and sculpture. So example of their wood carving would be the bulul. That one in the picture is a bulul. That's a carved wooden figure of the Anito. The Anito was the Cordillerans believed in Anito before they became Christians. They had their gods and goddesses, and they had this Anito to whom they would offer like food or prayers and the like. So we have here the bulul. This is a carved wooden figure of the Anito, and they use this one as a guard for their granary because they believe that this one has granary spirit, and this is also considered as ancestral figure who guards the granaries against disease to ensure a good harvest. So they believe that if they have this one in their granaries, their harvest would be safe. Okay, that's bulul. Right now, mm, we can see this wood carving in the markets. They are being sold. They're used as decorations, no longer as guard of the granaries. So this is a nude anthropomorphic figure seen in both male and female iterations. And they are seen in this position. They're seated with their elbows on their kneecap. Okay? Because this was how people in the Cordillera would sit when they would be gathered in front of a fireplace, and um they carved their anito in that manner. Another one is the kinabigat. Kinabigat is carved in relief along the post of the entrance to the hut or granary. This standing anthropomorphic figure functions as guardian of homes. So they believe that if they would place this one in the entrance of their homes or in their granaries and their homes would be also guarded. They should serve as the guard of their home. So kinabigat. It's also anthropomorphic and it's carved. Okay, next. We have the pokok. So pokok is used for storing rice. This one is an example of pokok. If you want to see the original one or the physical sample of this one, pokok, you can go to Bencab. It is displayed there. So according to my Cordillera students in my previous classes, they no longer use this one kasi may rice dispenser na daw ngayon. Kaya hindi na ginagamit ang pukok. Next, we have this one, Hagabi. Hagabi is actually a status furniture owned by the wealthy individuals or the kadangyan. So meaning during their time, this particular uh, wood carving would only be owned by the elite individuals. And even today, I believe this could only be owned by the wealthy individuals because according to world history, this is the most expensive Filipino artifact. So this one is created from a single massive log, and they would carve boar or carabao heads as an ornament. So itong mga sa gilid, they are carabao heads or they are boar. It depends on what the owner would like to accessorize his hagabi with. Next, we have the Tatago or Binaboy. Okay, this is a healing god, and during the the ancient times, people, almost all people in or almost all houses in the area would have this binaboy because they believe that this is a healing god. Okay. It will take the form or the carving would be in the form of a pig or a crocodile. Next, we have the coffins. So usually their coffins uh, would feature sculpture relief forms of the amphibious crocodile figure. But here in the example that I got, it's not a crocodile figure, it's an anthropomorphic figure that is designed on the cover of the coffin. So because why would it be crocodile figure? Because they believe that the crocodile would serve as the messenger between the gods and the dead person as he journeys both land and sea. They also have pottery in the Cordillera, specifically in Kalinga and in Bontoc. Okay, so these are hand modeled pottery, and this is practiced in Kalinga and Bontoc. And Kalinga are also known for well crafted pieces of pottery like this one in the picture. They also have baskets. Baskets in Cordillera are woven vessels characterized by ergonomic and sturdy designs because of the abundance of the materials in the region. So they have a lot of rattan plants, so they are able to have materials to create baskets. This particular basket, this is called Igorot basket, and it is now displayed in the Western Australian Museum. Somebody bought it in Manila and brought it there, and now it is displayed there. And they call it Igorot basket. They also have the pasiking or backpack, just like in the example or in the picture we have. That's a backpack. It's made of rattan, and commonly it is reddish brown or could be light tan. Uh, According to my Cordilleran student before, this was used to carry the head of the person defeated in a battle. But of course, this time around, it's no longer used to carry the head. It's used to carry our stuff like notebooks, books. We can put anything in it at this time. It's just like ordinary backpack. The only difference is that it is created from a different material. Next, we have textiles in the Cordillera. So these designs here are from the Kalinga. This is textile from the Kalinga. And the next one, this is from Ifugao. This is the textile designs of Ifugao. Then we have the Textile design of Apayao. Textile design of Mountain Province. See, the example we had a while back resembled this one, but not really similar to this one because it's an appropriated artwork already. Next, we have here from Abra. So these are the designs from Abra. We have also designs from Benguet. We have they have this one designs in textiles or motif for their textile. We have Agkab Kabayo. So if you look at this motif of the textile, there's a person riding on a horse. That's why it's named Agkab Kabayo. Okay, so an anthropomorphic figure riding a horse. That's one design. They also have this design or motif in their textile, the tinago. Tinago is a symbol that represents the deified ancestors, the ancestors that became gods, okay, of the Ifugao who have been elevated to the status of demigods in the afterlife. So they believe that their ancestors were promoted to be demigods, and so they placed a design a resemblant of their ancestors because they believe that if they have this one in their textile, a design in their textile, they will be protected, or their village or the people in the village will be protected by these ancestors whom they believed had become demigods. Next, we have here the python or inido. Inid, inido. Okay, that's another motif, python. So we have here later motifs. These ones are the later motifs of Cordilleran textile. They also have the lama. This is a blouse of plain white woven with red embellishments. That's the lama. Next, we have here the um, oldest mambabatok or oldest tattoo artist in the Cordillera. We have Apo Wang-od. So one of the arts of the Cordilleras would be tattooing, and the most famous of which is Apo Wang-od. Next, they also have folk tales. Example is how rice and streams came to be, which underscore the values of sharing to the community. Another example of their folktale is why some people have fair skin. So in this foxtale, this this folktale tells a story about why there are Cordillerans uh, that have fair skin. Because most of the Cordillerans are dark skinned, but there are those that are fair skinned. And this particular folktale would explain why some of the Cordillerans have fair skin. So according to the story, here there were star maidens, and these star maidens would usually descend from heavens to take a bath in the stream. But along the way, as they would go to the stream, they would step on the gabi plants of a man. And so the man discovered that it was the maidens who would trample on his plans. He captured one of them and then cut the wings of one of them. So that particular star maiden was left behind on Earth and later on became his wife. And that's the beginning of fair-skinned Cordillerans. Next, we have also this one references to body ornaments. The story is in reference to body ornaments. It's entitled Domaria and Apian. So Domaria fell in love with the snake, and the snake was so kind to her, built her a house. They the snake found her because Apian, her friend, left her, and then she got lost, and the snake found her, and then they lived together. And when the snake died, the snake told her to put him inside a dordori jar and then cover him there. And years after, when she remarried, she opened the dordori jar, and there were several accessories there. Okay, ornaments, head ornaments like bungot beads, garanaic beads, and sagaban beads. And they believe that was the start of these head ornaments. Next, they have their performance and rituals. So, for example, they have this wedding dance. Okay, wedding dance. And then we have also banga from Kalinga, where the dancers would carry on their head layers of jars. And then we have here patong from Bontok. Okay, so that's it for our lesson 10, Art and Society. Have a nice day.